You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
Good morning, Lowell High School.
So like right now, the senior class is stressing over college apps.
Please begin.
I would love UC Berkeley, Harvard, Stanford, Columbia.
I guess you're just looking at like the cream of the crop right here.
I work hard and I strive to be a nerd.
The pressure is insurmountable at times.
Oh my God!
It's the best.
Watch Try Harder May 2nd or stream at nepm.org.
Coming up, we're connecting you with the creativity and culture in your community, including an Indian cooking class that'll make your mouth water.
Indian food, the spice box, is like a medicine box.
Artist Marc Swanson's new exhibition at Mass MoCA examines relationships between humans and the natural world.
Using these kind of out-of-style, out-of-date objects that were sitting in these stores for almost nothing, I think it invites the viewer to think about what is there.
And viewing culture and tradition through the lens of needlework art and doily making.
As I was washing the piece and then holding it and ironing it, I began to wonder, well, who made this? Whose grandmother made this piece?
Join us for those stories and more as we explore the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. Up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point, your source for creativity, culture, and community. I'm Tony Dunn in for Zidalise Bauer. Over the years, authentic Indian cuisine has become one of the most popular dining experiences nationwide. And from Springfield to the Berkshires, there are many wonderful Indian restaurants to choose from. But classes on learning how to prepare these delectable dishes, well, those are few and far between. Mala Patel of Wilbraham is someone who's been able to fill that need. And Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan brings us her story.
I'm Mala Patel.
It's a Tuesday night in mid-March, and Mala Patel is gearing up to teach another of her increasingly popular Indian cuisine cooking classes. Patel, along with her husband, own and operate the Wilbraham Inn here on Route 20. It's where they were able to convert this kitchen into the workspace/classroom that it is now. It's also where Patel has found a unique use for the degree in health and nutrition she received years ago while doing something she truly loves.
Teaching how to cook is a passion, and I've been doing it for several years, so I feel, I don't know how people sitting here would say, but that's what they say too, that, I have a very calm, I'm just doing, it's a very warm, informal, fun class.
It's no secret that Indian cuisine has taken off here in the States. In nearly every metropolitan area from coast to coast, there are likely several options for restaurant goers to get their fix of food infused with any number and flavor of Indian spices. The people who love Indian food tend to really love it. In fact, many will say it actually makes them feel better. Turns out, it may be more than just a feeling.
Indian food, the spice box, is like a medicine box. Every single spice here has so much medicinal value, like say turmeric. Turmeric is an antiseptic, anti-carcinogenic, anti-inflammatory. Basically, if you take a teaspoon of turmeric once a day, it will work somewhere in your body. Lowers your blood pressure, it acts like Coumadin, great for arthritis, improves your blood quality. It's just on and on. I can go on and on with turmeric. It's just so medicinally rich. Similarly, all these spices have so much medicinal value.
Each class runs for 3 hours, and participants are given a crash course on anything from classic vegetarian cuisine, exotic South Indian, and authentic Indian street-side foods, just to name a few. On the docket tonight, though, the students were learning the ins and outs of making pakora, tikka masala, naan, and basmati rice. And it's more than just watching and taking notes. Everyone involved gets to put their hands right into the production. The hope here is that they can take these newfound skills on the road with them when they leave. The thing about this class and others like it is that students can then take what they've learned, bring it home, and apply that knowledge to a project in their own kitchen. As far as the learning process is concerned, there's definitely something to be said for the group dynamic.
It is a fun environment when you have more than a couple people, because you actually even learn from each other's question, because a question that someone would ask, you might have it inside, but you don't even ask. So that just gives you a great group, fun kind of activity.
Cooking classes in general tend to bring out a diverse audience. For some, it's date night. Others may be looking to entertain guests and want to impress with something a little more exotic than standard American fare. Others may just be looking to boost their skill set in the kitchen. No matter what the profile, Mala Patel has seen and taught for them. Her easygoing and oftentimes humorous demeanor allows students to leave feeling more relaxed and confident in their cooking abilities. Oh, and they also leave with full stomachs.
When they first come, they're like, oh my God, Indian cooking is hard. What will we do? And by the end of the class, they're like, oh my God, we thought it's so hard, but we can do this. We can definitely do this recipe at home.
Everything is so fresh.
And you can check out more from Mala Patel's cooking class in a digital extra. It's available online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Last month, the first of 2 companion exhibitions from artist Marc Swanson premiered at Mass MoCA in North Adams, with the second exhibition opening on July 16th at the Thomas Cole National Historic Site in Catskill, New York. Entitled Marc Swanson, a memorial to ice at the Dead Deer Disco, this exhibition has drawn inspiration from the works of Thomas Cole, the founder of the mid-19th century American art movement known as the Hudson River School. Zidalise Bauer spoke with Swanson to learn how his work examines the relationships between humans, culture, and the natural world.
Thomas Cole is considered the father of the Hudson River School, painting school, and that's sort of default considered the first American art movement. So I was feeling a little stuck with my work, so I just sort of followed this thread of Thomas Cole, thinking, I mean, I'm a contemporary sculptor. It doesn't have a lot to do with landscape painting, but I thought I would follow that thread. And I came to find out that Thomas Cole was like what we would probably call now a proto-environmentalist. And his work, paintings were very in line with the transcendentalists and the spirituality of nature. And that's very much where I'm in, where I like to sort of bring in nature and culture together. And so I just followed that thread, and it took me it took me to different places, but the work does inspire me. And Thomas Cole was self-taught. There's a lot of really interesting things for me in pulling these threads out with Thomas Cole. Spending time in the Catskills and where he painted, how he painted is really it can relate in quite a bit of different ways.
Now, let's talk about the title of these exhibitions a little bit. A Memorial to Ice at the Dead Deer Disco. Can you break that down for us and tell us the meaning and significance behind it?
I was nervous about using that title. And following the thread of Thomas Cole, I did a residency at Platte Clove in the Catskills here through the Catskill Center. That was a small cabin, and you can stay for a week. And I was hiking like every day and in the woods, and there's no running water. There's an outhouse. You have heats with wood. So you're very close to the land there. And about a week into that, I was thinking the whole time how this was how Thomas Cole would have lived, and maybe, the kind of place he would have stayed in the 1800s. I had this moment where I realized, wow, I just feel so connected. I feel at one with the universe here. But then I was sort of pulled out of it by the specter of climate change. And we use ice so much, I think, as it's kind of the canary in the coal mine kind of version. It's like, how much of the polar ice cap's melting? How much of the glaciers melting? How much is sea level going to rise? How much of that? So I sort of have this one kind of a guilty feeling, like I'm part of this. Will this beautiful scene where I'm connecting with the universe will it last? But also this idea of sort of being thrust into the future of what would it be like to sort of set up a memorial to something like ice, which is just a shorthand, I think, for how we look at climate change. Then when I came back and I was working on pieces to do with that, and then coming up with concepts for the show, I realized I kept having this deja vu moment of this kind of thing of like feeling really connected, feeling really at home, and then being pulled out of it into the dangers of the future. And I realized it was so similar to when I was first coming of age and went to nightclubs when I was younger. And it was a very same feeling where I was very connected. I felt whole. I had moved from New Hampshire to the city and I felt like this was my place. But then, you know, when I was feeling so connected, I would be pulled out of it by the specter and the fear of the AIDS crisis, because very much like climate change now, you couldn't see it. And it was sort of like very amorphous how it was actually even happening, but it was happening. So I, for a long time, sort of had this idea that the title would be either the Memorial to Ice or the Dead Deer Disco, which had to do with those two things. And I was very uncomfortable with trying to like conflate these two huge things, you know, one from the more in the past and about a whole different thing, but realizing that they were sort of treated in very much the same way, and thought, well, if I just maybe I can put the title together, and trying to put these whole things together, it could link the whole thing.
Now, I know that the exhibitions are a series of sculptures and environments. Tell me about the materials that you used and how we will kind of go through those levels of connections of culture, nature, and just human.
For materials in the show, at first it was kind of like, how do I make a show about climate change and not affect, you know, how do I do it without carbon? And I came up with the idea. I was like, well, the only thing I could really do is show a completely dark gallery space. And because artwork in itself, if you think about it, is not meant to degrade. Like a couch, no matter how much money you spend on it, if you use it, you know, one, it will go out of style, and two, it will degrade. We look at artwork from, you know, hundreds, thousands of years old. Looking at it doesn't degrade it. So I wasn't so worried about the materials I was using necessarily sustainable, because it was kind of a choice, like, do I do a art gallery or do I make a choice and say what I want to say? Because it was so interesting looking at these things that could work as basis for sculptures and things that when people buy these beautiful pieces of furniture, they never think they're going to get rid of them. You know, it seems like something that will last forever, but it always does end up, you know, either in a restore or a landfill, more likely. So kind of naturally using found objects and bringing this into my sculpture ended up sort of commenting on this part of how culture works, that using these kind of out of style, out of date objects that were sitting in these stores for almost nothing, I think it invites the viewer to think about what is there.
These exhibitions also create a narrative that tie the past, Thomas Cole's past, to the present, also talking about conservation and memorial. So what do you hope people take away and feel after viewing your work?
I think I tried to create an emotional space where people could enter these subjects on a very personal level, because I think these, as one of my favorite thinkers in all this, Tim Morton, calls hyper objects. They're so big, we can't even figure out how to think about them. You know, I think a lot of times for me, like seeing a movie or a TV show or reading a book about a very difficult subject really gives me the distance to be able to process it through somebody else's experience. So I wanted to try and do that in this show and create a space where people could wander through it and have their own feelings through, hopefully, sort of me being really honest in a certain way, but through art, through a visual medium, you know, which I think can be more open in that way.
Uncredited, currently on display at Wisteria-Hearst Museum in Holyoke, utilizes the traditional needle art of doilies to draw attention to markers of identity, shared experiences, and memories carried by their makers. A companion work entitled When maps wages earned by women compared to men since the Equal Pay Act of 1963 was signed into law in the United States. Both exhibits were curated by Felice Caivano, an artist and chair of the Visual Art Department at Holyoke Community College. And she spoke with producer Dave Fraser about this unique art form.
This room could talk. If all of these people were here, if these women were here, what would the stories be? What would they say? It would be pretty lively, I would think. I was never really drawn to doilies like most of us our age because our grandparents had them and our great aunts, and they were under everything and they were everywhere. But as I started to buy them and wash them and iron them and hold them, I began to think about their makers and who the women were that made these things. And why were they in the households everywhere from the turn of the century here in the United States through the 50s? Why are they still made? In 2018, I was invited to be part of this exhibition, and it was simply called Vote. So I thought about it and came up with this idea because we were approaching the 100th year anniversary of women's right to vote, which was 2020. And I had this idea to get a doily that I thought was 100 years old. And on it, I simply wanted to embroider the word vote in a typeface that might have been from the 1920s. And I selected French knots because French knots are my favorite embroidery stitch. And this is the piece that started it all, because as I was washing the piece and then holding it and ironing it, and I spent a lot of time with this piece making each little tiny French knot, I began to wonder, well, who made this? Whose grandmother made this piece? The walls that are behind me and all around here, this piece is called Uncredited. And it's composed of individual doilies, and together they make up the whole, they make up the installation. The piece is called Uncredited because for the most part in this room we don't know who the women were that made these pieces. If you notice, they're all blank centers because each blank, in my thinking, represents the unknown woman who made them. And there are a few cases in here where friends gave me doilies, so I know they're made by so-and-so's grandmother, but very few compared to the amount of doilies that are in this space. This piece is titled When, and most of these doilies I embroidered during COVID as I sat home in my chair each day embroidering. So the numbers represent the amount of money women have made, percentage to the dollar, compared to men since the Equal Pay Act of 1963. So it begins on the lower level of the dollar with a 58.9%, and it moves around. And what was important for me was not only to show the work and to put the labor into it, because it represents labor and wages, but to use threads that kind of look like money. So there's a lot of copper and silver and gold in here. It was important for me to find doilies that I thought were made here in the United States and America by immigrant women. So each doily and each type of doily for me represents the history of that woman, the culture, the stories that they brought with them. But what I didn't expect was that I'd grow to love them so much, but that they'd be so beautiful when they're all put together and up on a wall and installed. And that's been the reaction of many people.
And for more on Wisteria Hearst, head on over to our webpage for a digital extra in which the museum's director discusses its history and mission.
Skinner family brought this house here after a flood in Williamsburg in 1874, and it was built here on this property. We have garden tours that we do in the summer when everything is beautiful and in bloom. Everything is modeled as well as possible after the English garden plans that were made by the Skinner family.
You can find that digital extra online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. The Springfield Museums are entering a new era. Jenny Powers, former Family Engagement Coordinator for the Springfield Museums, has been named as the Director of Science and is the first woman to hold this position in more than 70 years. Grace Pettis Johnson oversaw the role from 1910 to 1949 and has served as an inspiration for Powers as she transitions into this new leadership position. Zydelise Bauer spoke with Powers to learn more about her predecessor and to learn about her vision for the future of the Springfield Science Museum.
I learned about her by reading a publication from the Springfield Science Museum that was an overview of how the museum was founded and how the collections expanded, and it was written by Grace. And throughout the entire book, you could tell how excited she was to share new things with the people in the city of Springfield. The collections came from all over the place. At that time, people could just ship specimens to the museum to be accepted into the collections. So she had part of the job of weeding through them, picking which ones she thought would be best, which ones to display. And so she was an assistant curator for a long time. And then she eventually became director. While she was director, one thing that I absolutely loved was that she started the junior room at the Springfield Science Museum, which was the first ever program for children.
Now, before we get into some of your history at the Springfield Science Museum, I know that for over 20 years, you've been a science educator. So tell me, how did your interest and passion for science begin?
Well, I had a couple really good mentors, and one of them was a science teacher in Chicopee Public Schools, and I actually was a sub at the time, but she invited me to her classroom over and over, and I got to learn about the lessons that she created and how she really created ways for science to really stick in these kids' brains. It wouldn't just be something fun they walked in and got to do and leave. They really were able to absorb those concepts. And then I had a second science mentor who was the curator of physical science here at the museum. And he is the one that taught me to love astronomy. And it just became something kind of ingrained in me and a passion that I love sharing with other people. People have been so generous in sharing their knowledge with me. I'm excited to be able to present information in a really accessible, interesting way to the public too.
For the past 6 years, you held the Family Engagement Coordinator role at the Springfield Museums. What were some of the projects that you worked on in that role that has led you into having this new role as director?
Well, every family program that we've ever done, no matter what the theme was, has integrated science into it. So whether it be the Dr. Seuss opening party, I got to plan the party for that. That was one of the best things I ever got to do. Whether it was that and where we compared real live cats or feline animal skins and talked about them being the Cat in the Hat's wild cousins, or whether we were getting to use real tools that scientists use, like microscopes. So all of those things, they're just so interesting and they're so fun. And there's no theme that doesn't work with science, from wizards to rock and roll. Science is everywhere, all around us.
No, that's so true. I love that you point that out, because I mean, even talking about like the feline skins, I would have never imagined that, but it's nice to have that connection to Cat in the Hat and bring that together. And so with your experience on bringing all of this dynamic programming to the Science Museum, what is your vision on the direction that you would like to see the museum go in now being the new director?
Well, there's a few things that are top priorities for me. So number one is any new exhibit or any updated exhibit is going to be fully bilingual, English and Spanish. Some other things we're doing, well, you can never go wrong with more dinosaurs. We're also upgrading our planetarium. That's something I'm really excited about. We have a new International Space Station exhibit opening that's going to enhance Astronomy Hall. Like I said, I do have a special passion for astronomy, but also dinosaurs. And then we have these amazing dioramas throughout our habitat and mammal hall. What we want to do with those is keep them because they are treasures, but we want to enhance them to create a more immersive experience.
Something that's really important for you is creating a barrier-free environment at the museums. So in addition to having bilingual exhibits, how else do you ensure that it's very welcoming for people of all backgrounds?
I've always heard that a good museum should be both a mirror and a window. So we want people to be able to find themselves in this museum. We know that every visitor comes in with some knowledge of science. So they should be able to find themselves. They should be able to feel empowered by recognition of concepts they already know. And then we should go deeper and let them learn even more. Another way that we're going to make sure that the area is accessible is by including things for people who may have low or no sight, or other people with disabilities, so that we make sure that they can access everything we have as well. For instance, we're talking about an exhibit that is all touch about nebulas, and we're also talking about a planetarium show that you don't need sight to enjoy.
That's amazing. And I know that you also said that you love how the Science Museum offers simple and positive interactions. And that's always what stands out to me when I visit. Like, it's always amazing that me and my 6-year-old daughter can interact with the same exhibit and have the same level of engagement. So tell me, what is the impact that science can have on individuals, especially when you have accessible, interactive, hands-on activities?
Science can have such a wide variety of impacts, from tiny things that help you go about your day in a more efficient way to inspiring people's careers. And so both of those things are really important. Learning science should improve your life in some way. So whether it's just turning off the sink while you brush your teeth, or whether it's being one of the next astronauts on the International Space Station, everything in between, science doesn't have to be a career. It certainly can, but science can also be just for pleasure. So even if we're improving your life just by having that time together, and that's one thing that our visitors value most. We know from evaluations that we've done that just those times to be together are really, really important.
The same way that you took inspiration from Grace Pettis Johnson, some young girl or young woman will look to you and is already looking to you as an inspiration. So what words of advice would you like to share?
You don't have to know the direction that you want to go right away. I didn't take a direct path to get to this place. You can try lots of different things and decide what you want to do. And even when you make a decision, you don't have to do that the rest of your life. You can do what you want, and you should be able to find ways to both work and in your life that bring you so much pleasure that you have a very happy life. That's what I have managed to accomplish, and I hope that other girls and women will be able to too.
And that does it for this edition of Connecting Point. Remember, you can always find all of the stories that you saw in this episode, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and so much more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please be sure to join us again every week right here for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm Tony Dunn in for Zidalise Power. Thanks for watching and have a good night.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
I travel around to so many places. The answer to climate change. There's communities everywhere creating more resilience in the natural world to rebalance the planet. That must be the key that can save us all.
Watch Changing Planet April 20th or stream at nepm.org.
The normal things that you lose when you go to jail is everything.
More than 70 million Americans have an arrest or criminal record.
It screws up finding a job and finding a house.
They say you're rehabilitated. The world don't know that.
What happens after they've served their time?
We've taught ourselves to be afraid of people who've broken the law, and we govern through fear.
I'm always going to be in a state of incarceration, even though I'm free.
Searching for Justice, Life After Lockup, Wednesday at 10 on NEPM.
Being a mom is educator on overdrive. I love that with PBS Kids, there is something for every developmental stage along the way. My 4-year-old really connects with Daniel Tiger. My 8-year-old loves the PBS Kids apps and really enjoys Odd Squad. My oldest uses PBS Learning Media to help with her homework. I trust PBS Kids to complement what I want my kids to become, and I consider them my teacher assistant.
Looking for a good book to escape into? How about Matrix by Amherst College grad Lauren Groff? It's an astonishing tale about 12th century poet and mystic Marie de France, who leads an impoverished nunnery into prosperity. I'm Erin O'Neill, host of the NEPM Book Club, and we'll tackle Matrix at our next virtual meeting on April 26th at 7 p.m. Sign up at nepm.org/book club.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
I'm a really good detective. I always get to the truth. Let's see how this plays out.
Shaped by land, but sustained by their connection to us. These are American horses.
What's happening in the Arctic could really affect everyone.
It is literally sinking. These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport on the PBS app. Download it today.
You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
Good morning, Mole High School.
So like right now, the senior class is stressing over college apps.
Please begin.
I would love UC Berkeley, Harvard, Stanford, Columbia.
I guess you're just looking at like the cream of the crop right here.
I work hard and I strive to be a nerd.
The pressure is insurmountable at times.
Oh my God!
It's the best.
Watch Try Harder May 2nd or stream at